Yes, it is true. We're going to be talking about Vancouver Canucks young center Braeden Cootes. But it's also true that we have to take a blast to the past. 12 years ago, when the Vancouver Canucks made themselves another first-round draft pick that inevitably became one of the franchise's most important pieces. Ladies and gentlemen, let's take a blast to the past from Braeden Cootes in 2025 all the way back to Bo Horvat in 2013. Man, look at these images. They're so old, and Bo Horvat is so young. Don't you remember when this guy was drafted by the Vancouver Canucks in the 2013 draft in New Jersey after Vancouver traded away Corey Schneider to get the 9th overall pick? The conversations on the draft floor and on the draft programming were that Bo Horvat was the next Ryan O'Reilly. Well, in 2025, turns out Braeden Cootes, this guy's being compared to Bo himself. And I get that it's kind of funny to talk about Braeden Cootes as the next Bo Horvat because, of course, they're both drafted by Vancouver and Bo was inevitably a captain. But I think there's a very serious conversation to have about what Braeden Cootes is versus what Bo Horvat was 12 years ago in 2013's preseason. To start things off, let's dive into this post made by the Our Canucks crew. Every Second Counts posted this a few days ago, asking, was Bo Horvat as good as Cootes at 18 years old? Let's read some of these responses and get into my thoughts afterwards. Delta Canuckian says, pretty comparable, I think. Bo Horvat was definitely generating some he might make the team buzz at 18. They've had similar point totals in junior, though Bo was always more of a goal scorer and was seen as more ready in terms of size. Cootes has him beat on speed and skating at this point, though. It's worth pointing out that Bo Horvat was on a stacked London team versus Cootes being on a really weak Seattle team. London had two 80-point scorers in Domi and Griffith his draft year. Meanwhile, Cootes and Pilling are the only guys to hit 60 points. The best answer is that it depends on what you value. Cootes is a much better skater at their age and was more productive on junior on a much worse team. Horvat had NHL size, while Cootes needs to put on some weight, and Bo was viewed as a better scorer and was also drafted higher. Both were pretty similar with how pro-ready their game is, and their leadership. Captain Indo-Canadian says that from what I remember, Bo Horvat was simply a different player, but also close to NHL ready. Cootes is more skilled in my opinion. His puck skills are nice, and he's miles ahead of what Bo was as a skater. Bo was more physically developed, though. In my honest opinion, Horvat didn't show the offensive upside as soon as Cootes has, at least from the eye test. So let's take a blast back to the past, and I wanted to give you some of my thoughts as to how this conversation shakes up, because when Bo Horvat was drafted in the 2013 draft, he was slightly under a point per game. However, even though he was taken 9th overall by the Vancouver Canucks, there were some scouts that were thinking that this guy could have been a little bit higher. Now, back in 2013, readily available draft guides and mock drafts weren't as prevalent as they are today, at least on the internet. So you can only find future considerations having him at number 23. However, there was the commentary from the Bo Horvat broadcast, I think it might have been Pierre Maguire, if not somebody else, who said essentially that at least one NHL team had Bo Horvat ranked as highly as number 4 on their draft board in that draft season. Now, that might not mean much to you when you think about who was taken in 2013, etc., but still, Bo was a bigger guy who was a little bit heavier, who had a lot worse skating compared to Cootes, but who was a little bit more physically mature. And in that 2012-13 season, he did play very well. He was drafted by Vancouver. He didn't make the team out of camp. He didn't even get the 9 games. But I remember myself, I was watching this guy and Hunter Shinkaruk in the preseason thinking, hey, they're pretty good. And I was kind of disappointed when they got sent back down to junior, listening to that broadcast on the radio as I was driving back home from elementary school. Or no, it was in my first year of high school. Right, I started high school in 2013. with my parents. So obviously that was a memorable moment for me, but thinking about Braeden Cootes right now, there are some very big similarities just in terms of the style of game that they play. Defensively responsible, up and down the ice, they like to get involved. Braeden Cootes, sure, he is less physically mature compared to Bo Horvat. They're the same height, yes, but Bo was a little stockier, especially as an 18-year-old. Braeden Cootes also was able to produce a little bit better than Bo did in the WHL his draft season. The point production thing also does make sense because Bo was playing on a very good London Knights squad, and he also was able to up his point production the next season, getting 74 points in 54 games. He made the Vancouver Canucks shortly after and had a few seasons where he was hovering around the 40-50 point mark before exploding and becoming a near 40-goal capable scorer with the team in 2023. Now, for Bo, he was problematic in terms of his skating. That was always the problem with Bo Horvat. It's that his feet weren't really all too great. He needed to go through a lot of power skating lessons to get that footwork that he's known for now. His north-south sniping ability was one of the best qualities that he had in Vancouver, especially in that 2020 playoff run that the Canucks had. I mean, his ability to just dive down center ice and just score, it was pretty remarkable. And he wasn't able to do that to the same capacity earlier on in his career. He had to work on the skating to get there. Braeden Cootes, on the other hand, he's a lot better at skating already. His footwork works out, he's able to keep up with NHL caliber talent, and I'd say a lot of the mobility that you wish these junior guys had going into the NHL. Braeden Cootes is like almost there. If you give him another season in the WHL, which I don't think would be a bad thing, if you give him another season, he'll be able to get a little bit stronger, a little bit better. He knows what he needs to work on. And next season, he'll come back, hopefully flying out of a cannon and potentially even outproducing Bo Horvat's rookie year. That is, of course, assuming Braeden Cootes gets sent down without getting a 9-game sample, which I think at this point he's earned, especially when you consider Nils Höglander and Connor Garland's questionable health status. Who knows, maybe by the time this video is uploaded on YouTube, Braeden Cootes has already gotten sent down, but at the time of recording this audio, I do think it's realistic to think that he could get a 9-game sample. And you also have to talk about leadership. Bo's a really renowned leader. You can say what you want about his interviews throughout these dark Vancouver Canucks years where nothing was going right. Say what you want about how Bo Horvat handled those situations in the media, but he was always a really good kid that a lot of people around the teams that he played for respected, and Braeden Cootes is the exact same way. We saw Rick Dhaliwal talk about this last week in Halford and Brough, how the WHL Seattle Thunderbirds absolutely love this guy. He's the first guy out there on the ice. He's the first guy to show up to the arena. He's the last guy to leave the ice. He's committed to Seattle. He likes Seattle. They love him, and he wants to be able to do all of the things he can do development-wise with Seattle. There was a threat that he could potentially leave to the NCAA, but he wanted to plant his feet and say, yeah, I'm staying here. Pacific Northwest, I'm committed to this team. They want me here. They lost out on Kevin Korchinski a few years ago, and that didn't work out all too well. So Cootes does not want to leave Seattle in the dust. That is, of course, assuming he goes back. If he does end up making the Vancouver Canucks for 82 games, superseding what Bo Horvat was capable of doing, then okay, be my guest, Braeden Cootes. Show us that you're worth it. But as of right now, I think there are some very comparable traits between the two centers that Vancouver ended up drafting, and we are really looking at a lot of this stuff now. A lot of people are talking about the conversation of Horvat and Cootes. I think Ian McIntyre writing about it too in his article the other day doesn't do anything to calm those conversations down. But I think it's a pretty good talk to have, right? Especially when you think about where the Canucks are 12 years after the Bo Horvat pick in 2013. With all this in mind, though, I want you to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How do you feel about the Cootes versus Horvat comparison? If you enjoyed this video at any point, please click the like button. If you did not, then feel free to hit that dislike button. Comments also help out with the algorithm. I really appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.